Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Dr. Patrick Lockwood, and this is,
Sebastian DeRoja.
and
Welcome
this
back.
is, yes, the Alchemy of the Mind podcast. So what are we talking about?
Today we're going to discuss psychedelics, and we're going to discuss digital detox. We're going to keep it nice and positive, because last time we were a little bit snarky.
Yeah, that's true. We should be nicer today. That's true. That's for sure.
You're cheery today, so
I'm super cheery. Yeah. Okay. So psychedelics and digital detox.
Yeah. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with digital detox and then work our way into psychedelics as a solution.
Okay. Definitely helps.
So what are the problems that we're seeing and why are they there? I guess.
I mean, to me, some of the biggest issues is with on-demand culture and what's the word? On-demand culture and distraction culture.
Distraction culture.
Yeah, like everyone now, it's like even like look at, dating apps. It's like, there's never before where there's such an abundance of people that were, like like the poly thing, like dating, looking for someone else. Like, I mean, I feel like distraction culture has permeated every avenue of our life through technology.
Yeah, I could see that with the dating apps because you have this instantaneous access to people that you wouldn't necessarily have.
Well, and you might be like, I mean, I think the tendency too for people to, instead of working through an issue, what is that noise?
Sorry.
For people to work through an issue with someone else, right, and kind of sustain like some challenges. Now they can just like, get on an app and boop, next person. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it actually is disconnecting us more too, because obviously it all comes down to connectivity, and these things that are meant to connect us more, but are actually reinforcing a lack of connection.
Right. It's almost as if, in a mathematical sense or something, we've reached a point at which we can't tolerate much more information or choices, number of choices.
Overload.
So we kind of get overloaded and we shut down and we just kind of quickly get rid of options as they show up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think all that ties together too, right? Like the digital overload, like never before did we, again, in dating and apps, and messaging platforms.
Yeah.
And I've watched myself get not as, get more thinned out to where like maybe I'm not as on top of, all these forms of communication because there's so many.
Yeah.
And other people I know, professionals that I would usually expect would kind of be on top of their communications, but I feel like we're all just overloaded with so many options.
Right.
And so now too, it's like, well, this person has the preference of this communication app, this person has that one, and it ends up, segmenting us out.
I wonder how many how many apps would you say you have on your phone for communication?
Oh, for me on my phone for communication?
Yeah, let's be honest to our viewers here.
Okay, I can look. Hold on. So I got Signal, I got Messenger, I got Airbnb for work, obviously.
Yeah.
I got WhatsApp, I got Grindr, I got Scruff, I got Tinder, I got Proton Mail. Or does emailing count?
Yes.
Okay, Proton Mail, inbox, regular inbox. There's anything else? I think that's probably, I don't really use, Instagram.
Okay.
Reddit. I don't really message much on there, but it still exists. So yeah. So what, like 8 or whatever that is?
Something like that. It was like 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So it could be much more because obviously there are hundreds.
Yeah. And I guess I have like, Facebook Messenger, but fuck Facebook.
But fuck Facebook.
Nice. Did you completely you deleted yours?
Yeah. Well, I still have I have a Facebook profile, but I don't actually access anything personally. It's just so that I can post research articles on the business page that I run.
Oh, okay. Yeah. My question is eliminating some of the things. It's weird. Is it like, especially in business?
Yeah.
For me, it's culture. And this is for the reason with my plan, I got the iPad because, as we've been discussing, is the whole dumb phone thing or, getting a phone alternative. How unfunctional will that be though within new framework of society.
Yeah.
You know, is an interesting thing, like, oh, you need to now get security access to something, and then can you not because you don't have a smartphone?
Right.
You know, that's gonna. I'm wondering how impacting it will be, you know, or how impactful of like functioning. I imagine with the iPad it'll be doable. I just think it's funny though, because people ran businesses in the past and were not hyper connected like this.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like it can be done a different way for sure. It's just different, I suppose.
Well, I think it could be done differently. I don't know that any of the companies want to go back to a slower pace of business, would be my guess. I think because
I don't imagine companies do, but I think there is a resurgence of people like for example, the Punked phone, you know, that Switzerland phone that I'm looking at. They've completely sold out with their new release of the MPO2, their newest one. So like, you know, now it's on back order to get more of them. And like, you know, you look at Light Phone 2, right, which is another, you know, a little more, it's about like the simplified, you know, you still got Uber and these other, you know, kind of essential things, but nonetheless the distracting things. And that Kickstarter is hugely funded.
Yeah, it is.
You know, so I feel like there is an interest for people because I think people are overloaded.
Yeah, I would totally agree that people are overloaded. And I think those are two primo examples of the fact that, you know, the business world is noticing.
Yeah.
Now, I find myself wondering how else we can approach this, because I think maybe simpler communication technology would help greatly. I mean, as you and I have been talking about, if everyone just went back to a razor, life would be so different.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know that most people would want that since they're so accustomed to the kind of phone that they have and all the apps and all the technology. But I feel like that's kind of what's needed.
Well, and I feel like there's people too who are, that's why we see though interest in those new options, because people are like just feeling, you know, thinned out, you know, spread too thin with technology.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, let's roll out 5G, which is this whole like success at any cost, a very unhealthy cost. And then it's like, well, to make your phone faster, it's like nothing. I don't need anything to be faster. I don't wait for anything.
Right.
And then that's like, can we increase that? And that's that we're increasing that threshold of like on-demand culture.
Right.
You know, which of course Amazon also reinforces. And we have like I think that removes mindfulness too.
Yeah, it does.
Or more like, I want a thing. We're a consumption-based culture. And I think it's technology peaks consumption, you know, to a point that maybe it makes consumption so easy and so habitual, you know, to a point that it's probably, remember how we talked about how the kids are now developing like bone spur horn things off the back of their lower skull because of holding a phone like this. I mean, so it impacts on our physical body, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing how something as simple as a phone has such far-reaching implications across multiple facets of our life. It's not just a communication device, it's a life device.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's amazing.
Well, now as it becomes more integrated, you know, then it's like you're, you know, accessing your house, accessing all information, you know, your pets potty habits.
Is that so?
That's my new thing that I have coming. So here's that thing too. Like, how will I utilize my Footloose cat box? It's a cat box, and it just lets you know their habits of when they go to the bathroom. But it's also an auto-changing box. I already have one currently, but this one's in the Internet of Things, which I'm like, fuck. But it's very delayed though.
But does it like send you messages and let you know on your phone that?
Cat box it just shows you their habits. Because the best way to know if a pet is sick, they're going to start urinating differently.
Yeah.
So you'll know, like, oh, Tijba's go ahead and like doubled her urination today. Something's probably up with her.
So now we can be helicopter pet parents.
Yes.
Wow, that's craziness.
Kind of okay with that because it's not like a pet can't tell you if something's wrong with it. You know, so unlike I don't think it's quite helicopter. It's a conscientious pet parent.
Is that rationalizing? Is that what that is?
No, I mean, I think it's a helpful thing. I think knowing, you know, more so you can help something that can't communicate with you. Like Tidge was like, boy, I'm sure peeing a lot today. Especially because they use a litter robot, so I don't really pay attention other than when she walks out looking like a Mojave warrior with like fucking white powder all over her face. She does. She looks like one of the people like doing the iboga. Like it's just fun. And I was like, Tidge, you seriously? Shake that shit off your face.
It's funny.
It's when she has a rough one. She gets all wild with the litter, and so it covers her. That's really gross.
That's funny. You have a funny cat there.
Maybe you should get a cat.
No, God, no. I can't care for another living creature. I can't even care for myself.
And this is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Interesting. So now we can monitor. So wait, we can monitor our homes from our phone thanks to like the Ring doorbell thing. We can monitor our cat's urination practices. We can monitor our kids using nanny cams. We can monitor pretty much anything from anywhere from our phone at this point.
And now that Ring thing is also, they have a new app connected to Ring where you can monitor criminal activity in the neighborhood through the Ring. And so it creates like, hey, there's crime going on in this neighborhood, which is interesting. I mean, it's hard because there are definitely aspects of technology that are just amazing, you know, and helpful, but it's really a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact is, like, so I've been driving around the Tesla, right, which is auto driving, and I'm really I use auto driving all the time now on it, which is, you know, at first I was kind of nervous, but it drives so well. But it's really weird to not be thinking, right? I mean, you still have to click the thing, you have to be semi-engaged. But like, for example, I was going out to go to the friends, and then I turned to a friend's, and I went to look for where the supercharger was because you have to charge it. And I knew I didn't last time in Arlington, but it said Burlington. And I was like, oh, because I wasn't really thinking because I didn't have to think, right? Because it's doing, and I was like, oh, okay, that one's the closest. I guess go there. Well, it was 30 minutes out of the way.
Wow.
And so I'm there and I'm charging and having issues with the charger. Then I'm like, oh shit, I went like really far out of the way. But I wasn't thinking about how much further I was going because I was letting the car do the driving.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So it's this weird we're consigning, or, you know, we're signing off our abilities.
Yes, we are giving up
direction, our critical thinking.
Yes, and we're giving it over to the technology to do it for us.
Well, and imagine young people who haven't even had the years, like, you know, we have grown through this time, right? So we've had times where we had to use more critical thinking. So then you think of young people now who's just like, maybe that's why we're seeing so much entitlement and all this stuff, because people actually don't have to critically think about stuff anymore.
Right. They really don't have to use as much effort as they used to have to use. Because when I was a kid, there was no need to rely on a piece of technology to do things like figure out where you're going or understand a concept. You had to go to the library. You had to...
I remember how great it was to print out directions on MapQuest.
Yeah.
And then, but you still had to think and look, and so now it's funny because now it's just like, and soon it'll be, you'll just get in the car, put in your destination, or the car will already know, and then you'll just get in and ride and be there, and you won't even have to, like, people won't even look at their surroundings. They'll be on their phone.
That's so weird. Because I guess to a degree, walking is a somewhat unconscious process in the sense that we don't typically mindfully, intentionally step our foot each time. However, at the same time, I think with just the pure risk factor associated with a vehicle of that nature, thinking is a good thing.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
You know? I don't know. It's so strange.
So they make you think like every 20 seconds because you have to, like, you know, in the auto drive Tesla, you have to either I usually just click the volume because I already have the volume at 11, because unlike those things to 10, you can go to 11. And that's my favorite part. It's basically why I drive it, is the sound system. So I was like, I should just install a really nice sound system in my Jetta, my own car. And then I'd be just as happy because you can actually just pull over to a gas station and not drive 30 minutes more to get a charge.
Now, the rebuttal to that would be, well, what about when all of a sudden there are just as many charge stations as gas stations?
Perfect. Then it's great.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. No, I think it's great. I mean, obviously, electrical car is, you know, it's a great car. It's a great piece of machinery.
Mm-hmm.
It's like driving a house around, though, for $100,000 house. It's kind of wild.
Woof.
Yeah, quite you know. But it's fun having a friend who's like, yeah, take my car.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, the automaticity of things, the lack of thoughtfulness, the lack of mindfulness, I feel like that's just overly problematic for society as a whole.
Well, I think it also adds into all the polarization we're seeing. Because people aren't, the less they have to engage in critical thinking in general and like life tasks. I think that goes across the board. So maybe they're more prone to like go with a, you know, like a, you know, just to go with whatever instead of actually questioning things.
Right. They might be okay because they don't have to pay much attention to other things in the world. They might not have to put a lot of cognitive effort towards, you know, really reading the article or just looking at the headline. They can just look at the headline and be lazy, so to speak.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
and not to mention, I think weed culture also is an interesting thing that plays a role. And as cannabis normalization is kind of permeating culture, I also think it's an interesting because it affects how you think. It amplifies how you think. It amplifies emotion. You know, then I think of this, you know, our culture getting more mindless. And then, of course, to me, intentionally using weed can enhance, but it can also, you know, and what's the word? Emotional ability. Is that right?
Yeah.
Does increase his emotional ability, right? Which is kind of like emotional wavering.
Yeah.
Complacency. I mean, you know, I've always talked about the other sides of cannabis. And the weird one in the industry to talk about the issues.
Well, I mean, it's good that you do because I mean, we need more voices like that. I mean, most people don't know that there is kind of a rebound anxiety effect if you smoke cannabis for a long time. Smoke lots of it. Because most people start smoking weed to be less stressed and less anxious. And lo and behold, you're actually teaching your brain to be more anxious over time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I've watched it. We've had events here, and there's this girl who's just like doing dabs, and she's like, I don't know, I'm just socially anxious. I'm like, you're fucking enhancing it with the hugely concentrated cannabis. Like, lay off the weed, and you probably won't feel so anxious. But it's weird when things get ingrained as a habit. It's just like people who drink lots of coffee.
Yeah.
Same thing, and it's really adding to their anxiety and fear. But we put the blinders on too. But it's weird when something becomes, and I guess that's addiction, right? Or that's habit.
Yeah.
Like itself, where it's like, well, and to where you're doing something, but maybe to your detriment. Yeah. Even though you're like, oh, it doesn't really make me feel that great, but your brain is in that survival loop of, you know, saving energy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think both of us have really backed off on the coffee, and it seems like both of us are doing pretty good.
Yeah, well, now it's funny too, because when I do more of the coffee, like a couple of days where I've done like Guayusa, which is actually higher in caffeine, but it has L-theanine to kind of balance it. But I've had a couple of times, especially because I was microdosing the iboga, which really enhances. And then I'm like, but then I could tell like, oh, I've got too much caffeine on board, I feel. Yeah. But it's definitely, I do feel like I feel much better without it, but I do love the taste of it. I did get that Kofig, and I got the dandelion coffee. You know, those are both alternatives. Koa fig is like roasted black figs. It actually tastes pretty much like coffee, and it's got the robust body of coffee. And then dandelion is like an instant coffee that's not made. It's dandelions. Oh. But it's got like a bitter taste. That's interesting. Oh, earthquake.
Yeah, not today, thankfully.
Not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan. Hopefully.
But death on camera. Yeah, it was good. We had a good go.
We did all 4 episodes.
So what were we on there? Let's see. So wrapping that into, well, and I do think that psychedelics definitely for me, like here's an example of when I've like the time I actually accidentally dosed myself on acid, about 70 mic-ish, kind of area. I definitely saw like a huge impact on my tech use, my digital use. Have you actually seen that yourself at all? With your recent experiment?
Yeah. So my experiences with LSD have varied. The one time I went much harder, and I think I was at, what did I say, 84 mics, something like that. So when I was at 84, I found myself not necessarily less interested in my phone, But what I found myself more interested in was a positive connection with people.
Yeah.
That was more interesting to me. That was something I was more interested in seeking out, so to speak. But there was
actual engagement.
Yes, and there was no urgency. That's the difference. I was interested in it, but there was no, let's say, craving for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe you need some MDMA, and then you can experience that. Like craving for, that's a little more push, well, and that's a little outside the, it's interesting to see how that would be something probably for you that's a little outside the normal.
Which for sure, and I'm sure it would absolutely be outside the norm for me. I will say though, as a result of LSD, I think that I can understand why people like Sam Harris have a more, let's say, contemplative mindset or mindful mindset towards a lot of life's realities, because I think when you start to kind of have this overall sense of well-being, for lack of a better word, while you're on acid and you're starting to notice things and make connections between things, etc. Maybe that's neural integration. I don't know. You just kind of have this overall sense of like everything's okay.
Yeah.
And there's no need to have any fuss about it.
Don't fuss. No fuss.
Exactly. That was my experience, at least.
Well, and that's contentment.
Yeah.
Contentment,
which I think is kind of the goal of meditation if you do it right.
And really fascinated by plants.
Yes, that was one of my experiences. I was totally fascinated by this fig plant. I think it was.
It was a fig, yeah. Hot and tot fig.
Hottentot fig.
That's what it said. I never heard of it. Was that just outside somewhere?
Yeah, I was just sitting outside on the sidewalk. I was like, oh, that's fascinating because they look like little fingers. Neat. So
were they like bulbous?
A little bit, but more like triangular bananas, if that makes sense.
Were they moving?
They were a little bit.
Yeah.
There was also a breeze.
The moving is funny because I remember I had my social justice cats calendar. And I remember at the time I accidentally took it, and then I was like sitting there because of course I was trying to drink some opium tea. So I was going for another direction, more for constriction rather than expansion. And then I was like sitting there and I was like, I started yawning and I'm like, oh no, I know that yawn. Oh no, I've accidentally ingested something LSD. And and so then I had to that was coming up and I was like, okay, it's like, I'm not saying anything. Cause I knew if I said something to Justin, he'd mess with me. And of course he's like, I waited long enough to make sure I wasn't in for like a way bigger ride than I planned. But I remember I looked up at it because I watched this movie about the end of the world and the movie was so intense and it was so weird. And I was like, there are some really weird like textures on it and stuff. And I was like, and I look at the cat and the cat's like, it's like hair moving. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm definitely there. But then luckily it got to there. Probably similar to where you were. It felt like around 70 mics-ish in that range.
Yeah.
It was really nicely enhanced and moving and kind of, extra interesting. But I remember I told him, then he's like, ooh, you're going to be doing an old Albert Hoffman thing. I'm like, do not say that. I do not want to have accidentally ingested a bunch, that would be unsettling. I don't want to go out of my.
Yeah. Bad trips are definitely something to avoid for sure. And
and I think usually they happen. I mean, I've definitely had sinister, even microdosing. I've had sinister feelings, where it just felt something fell off. And it was oh, this would be a bad trip if I was deeper in it. But you have a little more you're a little more conscious because you're between worlds. Yeah. But as you can see too, from your microdosing compared to full dosing, like you said, you felt more benefit for sure out of full dosing, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting is that totally lines up with the literature on psilocybin and LSD that I've read, which is the real therapeutic benefit for pretty much anyone in terms of, let's say, changes in trait openness to experience or changes in trait neuroticism, as an example. Those two things change with macrodoses, not microdoses. Yeah. And positive affect changes and sense of well-being changes for a couple of months afterwards for some people, according to the literature, but not with microdoses, with macrodoses.
Yeah, I think micro is more incremental, like little kind of like chipping away.
Mhm.
I think there's a place like I usually say for people to get their footing.
I see.
Like to get their sea legs, like to get a feel for what it's like to alter their consciousness. But I do think overall, I think part of it with microdosing, right, is it's like acceptable within our productivity culture.
That's true.
I mean, that's what has pioneered it in a way. I mean, it's definitely it's funny. It's kind of like Adderall use, right? Like they always talk about the opiate crisis, but we definitely have an amphetamine crisis, which probably results in a lot more like fucked up, like sexual behavior and things like deviancy from that. That doesn't get critiqued though, because it fits within the productivity of the culture.
Well, and alcohol too, I think, because there are so many norms around alcohol, and it's part of so many industries, from sports to, it's got to be 5 o'clock somewhere mentality.
Yeah,
totally. And alcohol causes so many more deaths than stimulants.
Yeah.
And it's just,
no, I mean, that's our thing is stimulants also really they don't actually cause deaths.
Right.
They just attack people's brains and make people into fucking crazy pieces,
Yeah, they do.
Because really it tends to be, that's when, mostly if you're on the street and there's like aggressive homeless people, or that usually you have a high chance that they've been doing meth, or crack too.
Could be.
Stimulants, though, they just tend to, and I think most of, it's weird because like opiates, if people have opiates, right, if they can get it, I mean, people aren't usually like, they're like, they're out when they're high. It's less, it's not the excitatory, kind of state.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of drug abuse that goes on in the world, and I've been talking with some colleagues about, the utility of different medical approaches to managing drug abuse issues, and it's so hard to know what a good comprehensive strategy is. It's my specialty, is what I do for a living, and it's just so difficult because there's so many factors. There's so many psychological
like looking
factors.
at decriminalizing, right? Like,
sounds good to me, but I don't know.
I know it sounds good, but then I'm like, well, what about, it's just a hard one. So in Seattle, right, they were going to try like, the decriminalize Oakland.
Yeah.
That decriminalize nature movement, which is to decriminalize psychedelics, which is what I think they should have done. But of course, here in Seattle at the one, which is, the tribe of people that, they are doing decriminalize. They're trying to say decriminalize all drugs in Seattle, which I just think is a stupid approach. It's so much less chance of it getting approved. I'd say decriminalize psychedelics would be a better starting place.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's just hard because it's like, we see effects of like, places to shoot safely. You see these things, but it has, I don't know. It's as habitual creatures, I don't know how we manage it. Like, for example, like usually long-term use of psychostimulants does tend to result in psychosis and, and so to me, I'm like, well, if we know it does that, it makes us is that something we want to make available when it, it's complicated.
It's very complicated. And I think, the major case study that everyone always points to is Portugal, right?
Yeah. Do you know any more on the stats of that? I was trying to look up.
Yeah, I looked them up.
The one thing I'll say, comparing us to Portugal, we're totally different culture.
Absolutely.
And that's what I wonder is that like the reasons that people do drugs in Portugal and what leads, maybe a really different scenario than here in some ways. I mean, we all, and there's obviously similarities too.
I can't remember the stats that I saw, but I think the number one or number two reason people admitted to treatment in Portugal since legalization was cannabis, which is interesting. And I got it from the European Monitoring Drug. It's like the EMDDA Association. I can't remember what it's called, but they're out there and they study all of Europe's drug use issues. And essentially, drug use has gone fairly far down since legalization. Drug use treatment has gone up a little bit. I don't know about crime as a result of drug use, though. I'd have to look that up because I can't recall off the top of my head.
Sorry, my guests are trying to bring outside guests, and I'm like, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
We're just gonna bring some friends and smoke a chill. No, nope.
Not this place.
Okay, back. What? Well, now it's just bad. It's liability wise. Sorry.
Yeah.
Refocusing. I went to look up the stats in Portugal. Continue. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, if you can find it while I'm talking, that'd be great. What did it say? Yeah, I think cannabis was the major drug of choice problem. Alcohol was another drug of choice problem. Maybe it was opiates, but I can't recall. The rate of certain diseases has gone down. I think the rate of transmission of, what's it called? Hepatitis has gone down since they've had.
Well, that's the question: is when you strip away the demonization of drugs, does that actually cause people to not be interested?
Well, yeah. I mean, to a degree, if you tell any classic addict you can't do that, it's bad, I'm going to go do that because it's bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That rebellious nature.
Rebel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing is, there's something to be said for harm reduction. I don't think it's the ideal philosophy, but it definitely works well, if you want to really cut down on certain disease issues, because I think preventing hepatitis, preventing the spread of HIV, preventing all these things is probably a good idea. So as much as safe injection sites might draw some other crime that you don't want to see in certain areas, I'd rather we see it and deal with it in public than it just be hidden in an alley somewhere.
For sure. Well, and criminalizing people for altering their consciousness is like criminalize them for crimes they do, as but to just criminalize people for getting high to me is not helpful.
That's never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're high and you drive, sure, absolutely, that person needs punishment. But
so this says lifetime drug users defined as people who have tried any drug even once actually rose from 8 to 12% between 2001 and 2007, then declined once more to 9.5 in 2014. Problem drug users, those who have come into contact with the police or rehabilitation facilities due to their drug habit, seem to have decreased by more than 10%. However, these statistics could be flawed due to differences in measurements throughout the years. Past month and year drug use has remained steadily low, with only 5% of 18 to 24-year-olds, for example, having used cannabis in the past month.
That's low compared to the United States. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's see.
Yeah,
let's see. It says, for instance, as of 2012, Portugal's lifetime cocaine use per capita was about 1/10 that of Spain's and 1/5 that of France. Let's see. Crime rates, that we've seen some positive benefits. It should come as no surprise that large sweeping changes to the legal system have also resulted in some negative repercussions. Arguably, the most glaring issue is the rise in homicides, which climbed by about 60% from 2001 to 2007.
Oh, wow.
They have evened out since, though, and currently sit a little more than 10% more than they were pre-decriminalization.
Okay.
That's interesting. Do you think because it's just more... I mean, if people can use things more steadily.
Let's see.
Yeah, we'll have to look more into that one.
Yeah, because the EMCDDA says in 2019, cannabis use is 8% across the 15 to 34-year-old population. High-risk opioid users are 33,000. 0.2% of the population uses ecstasy. 0% of the population uses amphetamines. 0.3% cocaine.
What?
That's what it says.
It says 0%?
0% amphetamines. Yeah. And the primary drug for treatment is cannabis for 37% of the population, heroin for 39% of the population.
Oh, interesting.
So the two biggest drug problems they have are cannabis and heroin, which makes sense.
Strange, though. So maybe they didn't have a meth issue?
No, apparently not.
Even beforehand?
Yeah. And then let's see, overdose deaths have decreased since they went up from 2011 to 2015. They reached a peak at 2015 and they've been going down dramatically since 2015.
Yeah, it's just such a combination of things, like it's interesting to think of a city. Oh, it's weird though to think of a city being just a city being decriminalized.
Yeah.
All drugs. I don't know what that effect will be on Seattle.
Well, the weird thing is, and I've talked with some cops about this too, is there's still a federal mandate that these things are illegal, even if the city says.
Yeah,
So
yes.
if LSD and cannabis are still Schedule 1 substances, for what reason, I have no clue.
Mm-hmm.
It's still illegal.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah, it's just silly.
It's absolutely insane. I don't know.
But it's insane that it all was made illegal to begin with.
Yeah.
The way they approached it.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of problems.
That whole campaign, just say no. It's like, well, no, just say no. Like, don't look deeper into something or inquire more. Oh my God, I remember in school, I don't know if you would have had this, but did the like police officer come in and like with all the drugs?
He didn't come in with the drugs, but he definitely explained all the drugs.
So they came in with the drugs. So they have like a case. And I was just like, I want to try everything. That's all I remember thinking. I mean, I literally had for the longest time, my quest was to try everything.
Nice.
I did at 15, I did heroin. I tried it. But luckily, no. I think I was 17 actually.
17? Oh, okay.
Well, luckily, I remember I wrote in my book, if I do the junk, I promise I'll never do it again.
That's funny.
A commitment to myself not to become a junkie.
There you go.
Which is weird because it was like my good friend was super pissed because it was her brother who was like in his mid-20s who did it for me.
Yeah.
Man, that's so screwed up. I think it's such a twisted, it's just weird. Misery loves company. It's just so weird to me in reference. Like I'm thinking, oh my God, if I was a 24-year-old, how would I ever want to introduce such an addictive drug and like shoot up a fucking 17-year-old? There's a little bit of darkness there.
Misery loves company.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Because he was a nice guy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure.
He could be both the worst. And I did meth with him when I worked at. I was 15 because I worked at the vendors in the mall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
That noise changed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did something change?
Yeah, there's like a sound.
I might have bumped something.
Was it a dildo?
Probably giant dildo.
BBC, a big black cock.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
I think even that phenomenon right there is probably worth exploring. The idea that misery loves company, that's probably a big part of our problem here.
Oh, for sure. Because because that spreads.
It does.
And then and then when that's reinforced by culture.
Yeah.
And
thus it's 5:00 somewhere, get done with work, go to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to me. I don't even get, just like the other on 4th of July drinking those, my bitch beers or whatever, the White Claws. I just was like, I don't know how people do this all the time.
I know.
Because it makes me just feel so tired and worn out. And I really, when I talk to people, so many more people I know now say they feel that way about booze.
Yeah.
So I think people get accustomed to feeling like shit.
We do. We're comfortable with misery because I think we expect it.
Yeah, life is suffering, right? So
right.
But it doesn't have to. But then it's like sometimes people make that suffering much more than it needs to be, probably.
I think there's a dramatic difference between pain and suffering. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Avoidable. True, because suffering is more one's reaction to pain.
Correct. It's your attachment to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're all very attached to our suffering.
Well, yeah, because people focus more. They hyper focus on this. People don't like, oh my God, all the good things that happened to me this year. People are more like, what's the worst thing that happened to me in the past month?
Right. No, exactly. I saw this. I forget, some celebrity or comedian or something said on Twitter. If you just stop paying attention to the news, you would see that people are getting along much better than you could imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it's the truth. If you walk down your street, the average person's not rioting like Antifa.
Yeah. Fuck Antifa.
Right.
Hey, at least it wasn't a shocker, not to go into too much news, but it wasn't a shocker that CNN, I'm like, Mercury's in retrograde because CNN is calling out Antifa, which is like, yeah, for once. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like an anomaly. So I'm like, oh, that must be the planetary alignment.
It's something to be grateful for, though. It happened.
Yeah, it is. At least maybe it starts to slowly chip away, and maybe some modicum of sanity will outcome of it.
I hope so. I mean,
is that the right use of that word? A modicum?
Yeah, just a little bit.
A modicum?
A little bit, just a piece. A piece. Yeah. And I think, okay, so how would you propose, given that you have much more experience than I do with this, how would you propose that psychedelics be used intentionally to help with things like our technology issue, for digital detox needs, to deal with the drug crisis?
I think doing these, utilizing psychedelics in therapeutic settings and reinforcing positive, minimal use of technology, positive, because that's the practice is where it comes in play. But the two are definitely entwined.
When you say therapeutic settings, can you expand on that? Because I'm not quite sure I know exactly what you mean.
Like intentional use, like going to a place, for example, that holds a workshop that is, it may be utilizing medicines, and then also kind of letting people know there are alternatives. Because that's a lot of times people just are caught up in the race. They're caught up in what is expected. And as we know at this time in the world, group think, people's just to go with the flow. But when people actually are given an opportunity to see an alternative to that flow, people often will take it, especially if they've, been taking an agent that helps with neuroplasticity. Yeah. That kind of opens up,
Okay. So based upon your experience, do you think it would be wiser, I guess you could say, to have a bunch of drug naive people in a group taking a psychedelic as part of a detox retreat? Or do you think that it would have to be more controlled, or
no, I think it could be. I think it depends on, the people, the doses, what substance, all that.
Would you be so, let's say...
I think more, maybe not as one group, but more like, some interaction. There's power in group use because we realize our shared struggle. People tend to connect on that group level, which is helpful.
Right. And what I'm butting up against in my head is the stereotype of the Grateful Dead follower who is wasted on acid and hanging out.
Yeah, it's not, you're creating a different environment to,
Right. So how do you keep it from...
You're not at a dead man. You're not at a concert,
I'm sure at a retreat you could play music.
You always, you definitely do play music. But it's generally not that. It's like relaxing, inward focusing,
yoga.
Yeah, sometimes dancing, sometimes kind of more shamany shit, but shamany shit.
Shamany shit. That sounds like a great punk band name.
Shamanic tendencies. That's what I usually say.
Shamanic tendencies.
I have shamanic tendencies.
Shamanic tendencies.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, instead of being like, oh, you're a shaman. No. I said this current culture doesn't support the role of a shaman. If the shit goes down and hits the grid and I'm doing making the medicine and doing the medicine work with people, then you can call me a shaman.
Sure.
But in the meantime, I have shamanic tendencies.
Shamanic tendencies. You're on the spectrum of shamanism.
I'm shaman-flexible.
Shaman-flexible. Oh, Lordy.
Flexible.
That's funny. Hetero-flexible.
You're probably hetero-flexible.
I don't know what I am at this point. Am I here right now?
You're just a cock with legs.
Am I high? What's going on right now? Who knows?
Remember, when you eat, you're just a vacuum with nipples.
That's right. We're just donuts. Humans are donuts. That's all.
Donuts?
Yeah, there's a giant hole going all through the middle of us.
Jim's killing me.
Oh boy, that's good.
Yeah, it's great. Have you ever done this thing where you get on the treadmill and put the band on your legs and then you walk sideways?
I have not.
It's much better than doing that little thigh chair, because the thigh chair is not a natural movement. You have to keep your glutes tight, your booty.
And I imagine that works on your, what is that?
It stabilizes too.
Yeah. What is that?
There was a trainer at the gym, so he walked me, and like I was gonna do that stupid booty spread machine, and he's like, "This is a crappy machine.
Don't do that."
He's like, "Women like it because they think it makes their hips smaller," but he said, "Come do this," and so he showed me, and it was great. But it just so when I woke up this morning, I was like, "Oh fuck, can't walk."
Love it. Sore is good.
I know. I even wanted to go today. I was debating it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pretty sore. Maybe I'll just go tomorrow.
Good. I like this because we get to live up to, the standard we want for other people. This is good. We work out, we take care of ourselves, we mindfully interact with substances. That's good.
Well, yeah, and that was like that was my missing component. That was the one thing I wasn't doing.
Nice.
It's the physicalness. So it's nice. And of course my, dietary stuff is super disciplined.
There you go.
A month now I've eaten completely clean, humanely raised everything and organic for a month. Everything.
Right on.
It's pretty cool. Feels good to have actually done it to such a standard.
Nice.
Doesn't mean you get to eat out though.
That's true. That's hard.
But it means I cook 2 meals a day and I'm really good at it now. So
nice. So you get some skills out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been pretty good at cooking, but now I'm really applying it.
Nice.
Just regular functioning cooking. Anyways, okay.
Well, okay. So we've broached the idea of a digital detox. We broached the idea of psychedelic use. We have lots, obviously, that we can say, and I think this is a good start.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right.
Cool.
Good.
That was a great conversation.
As
Thanks
always.
for conversations about culture. I think that's a good little tagline.
Conversations about culture. That's right. That's totally us. Well, I hope that anyone who watches will subscribe, will share, will like, all that stuff. I hope you find us on minds.com. That'll be great. And have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you and hopefully another week.
Okay.
All right. Bye.